Horizon Call of the Mountain. Everybody wants to know what's up. So in this video, we're going to take a deep dive in analysis. Switching the content up, boys. So let's talk about it, dudes. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Hush Pub over at NGI, and today we're going to be going on a little different journey because we're switching the content up, my boys. You know what I'm saying? We are going deep dive into a trailer analysis of Horizon Call of the Mountain, and this video is going to be long, and there's no bias, no hate. I'm just calling it how I see it in this video, and I want y'all to follow along, but don't worry, I got y'all. So without further ado, get your popcorn, your food, your drinks. This is gonna be a long video, and I'm gonna be here talking for a while. So without further ado, we are gonna kick this off with the Horizon Call of the Mountain announcement trailer. So the first thing we have to look at in this analysis is the fact that in the introductory period, we are already greeted by some text that says, and I quote you, "Some camera angles adjusted for trailer use." This alone is actually a really bad sign. No matter how you want to believe differently, we have to use our brains and our logic. Now we're going to keep going into this deep dive analysis. In the background, showing off some beautiful waterfalls with this handsome devil NPC of charm here to greet us on our journey. However, the camera angle adjustment text, is this just part of a camera angle, or do we actually see this in the game? Think about it with your mind. The next scene shows us our hands with the text still hovering over in this moment. The text being extremely an important detail because no one wants to be sued into oblivion with false advertising. So keep all this in mind as we continue throughout the video in this analysis. First thing I noticed in this frame in particular is that we have the gloves behind being shown with the threads with an insane amount of detail. The water reflections are looking truly beautiful, and the man's big old clap daddy buns in front of us are def catching that eye candy that we all needed to see. Hey yo! As the trailer continues to play out, you get to see the forest and its ton of beauty. The AI is rowing the boat. You're greeted by some semi-decent, fairly voice acting as the text finally disappears after these frames, but still keep that text in your mind. Notice that the hands are not being shown as this happens. The next frame, we are greeted by his giant robot machine doggo, not his, but a giant robot machine doggo gazing into our faces with its ultra rays of eye light. And if you actually pay attention to the surroundings around, you will actually see that there is some fogginess and bad textures. The quality around the edges of the game is either to hone in on this specific moment or to increase visual performance without losing graphic fidelity. So they want you to focus in on this moment and not anything around you, because they want to wow you with a wow factor. As the robot moves away, you get to see little bits of water splashing, showing off really good technical capabilities of the PSVR 2 combined with PS5's latest hardware. However, you can see what appears to be birds in the distance, and they look extremely blurry and unrecognizable to the natural human eye. And if you played VR before, you know exactly what it could look like in game with those little pixie dust flying around your eyes and to wow you. But the veterans of VR will be unaffected by this factor because we've seen this all before. It's just magic or science behind it. We know what's going on. They cut to some logos with some voice acting to increase the video length. Ask yourself, why would they do that? Because it's marketing. Everything has a reason. Everything has a purpose. The next scene shows robots jumping around on a tree stump branch with those same particle effects being shown, except they're just falling from the sky like how the birds were done previously, but pay attention that they are still on this damn boat. So either this is a really long level, or there's multiple levels where you're on a boat, which would kind of be a big disappointment to a lot of people because we don't actually know how long this game is. So moving on with the next scene, it shows more PSVR 2 and PS5 capabilities, but you're still left on that same damn boat. They are not showing much variety so far, even though we're 33 seconds into this 2-minute trailer. The boat rocks and you can see your hands for a mere second, and finally what it looks like, a boss monster. It knocks the boat over, everything fades to darkness, and the boss monster that I just mentioned about is going to come in truly handy later in this analysis, because we're going to be talking about that a lot. As it fades to black and you're somewhat in a swimming level where there actually shows some good graphic fidelity, some good visuals and effects like the bubbles being sprayed around the ocean, you do hop out of the water and they show off the climbing mechanics of the game. Notice the jagged edges around the ladder, and if you look more up at the clouds, you can definitely see that is a bit blurry. And even the left corner of the leaves seem a bit off, which is kind of odd considering it doesn't seem like much is going on. The next scene is most likely an adjusted camera angle for the trailer with CGI effects, just to do how clean and crispy everything looks, and it's even at a slight angle, which none of the other scenes look like this at all. The next scene shows off a mountain with a huge monster on top, but it's most likely another adjusted camera angle and not the same experience we're going to be getting face to face in our headsets. The next scene is the same as the other two, but with snow, and it's more close-up of the monster. Probably just environment CGI effects to hone in on to wow you all over again. The next scene has you more climbing, and you can see the sun reflecting down from the sky, but if you pay attention, you can see two of the most weirdest textures of the models that make them stand out and look completely out of place next to their counterparts. It could be a lighting issue or a misplacement by a level designer. Nevertheless though, this does look pretty awful, and if you look more to the right of the waterfall, you can see that it looks so damn blurry that you can confuse it with steam. Now as you climb up this mountain, you can see the dust of sand and it looks pretty amazing, but the fog from the light in the bushes, it just looks kind of foggy. And then if you look more at the bushes, they do seem lush and normal. However, the tree to the left is blurry and it looks a little bit like not pixelated, but it just has like that smear effect, like that paint smear. And the waterfall still in this scene looks like steam, with some of the clouds clashing in the background of the scenery. The next frames and scenes that we see looks beautiful, and it's hard to say if this one is an adjusted camera angle, but the water actually looks like water in this screenshot, in this scene this time, and it does seem to imply that when you're climbing, you're looking around and notice that one of your hands is gripped on the mountain, but your character is looking at a different viewpoint. So this seems to imply that you can use one hand and have your other hand and like swing around and look around. And as you get closer to the water, it gets more realistic as the FOV gets closer into the gaze, and maybe far away it just looks like steamy water. Maybe that's to save graphic fidelity, maybe that's to just save on performance. But there is some gaze, and that fog that hovers around everything doesn't really look like fog, it's just more dirty steam. Nevertheless though, it's probably one of the best scenes so far in the trailer that we've seen during this analysis. The next scene shows again more climbing, but if you pay close attention, you can notice that the lighting affects on your hands and how they can get dirty, where previously your hands weren't dirty. So this could either be a fluke or just part of the level where your hands are dirty during this segment. But it would be a nice little hidden feature that wasn't shown or talked about if your hands get dirty as you play and climb. Those little changes and those little sudden hidden things make good games into masterpieces. And as the game continues, the trailer shows you more of the scenes, it shows you more climbing again, and you're climbing into this awful fucking sun gazing into your viewpoint. And in fact, they have this sun so much in a lot of places when you climb, it is really annoying more than appealing. However, hopefully it's toned down in the headset, or it actually looks better, because at this point it's not a good look. And if you look to the left, there's this ugly monstrosity of green just glowing on the outside edges of the mountain. It kind of looks out of place, and why the hell is it glossy when everything around it is wooden and dull? But they could also have those there purposely to let the player know that they can climb on those, like those rocks you do when you practice hiking in real life. The rope shows some important details here to pay attention to with the fuzzies as it's closer to your FOV or POV. However, if you look at that rope and keep gazing up, those fuzzies begin to disappear, suggesting that the FOV for your POV isn't as huge as everybody is rumoring it to be. And as you get closer, the graphics and the fidelity is more vibrant and more in your face, and as you gaze away, it kind of just retracts itself. As you gaze around more, you see these birds flapping around in the distance, and it is a bit more noticeable this time, but come on guys, it's still very blurry in the grand scheme of things. The next frame introduced us to a slow motion matrix jump, which it's okay, but honestly nothing revolutionary. The important thing to note here though is notice the dust on the wood. It is handprints kind of forecasting where it wants the player to place the hands. Maybe, or it's just hints for more idea where to go in case the player themselves get lost. And seeming everything at this point just screams that this game is all the way on rails, or it holds your hand a lot. And that's just me being honest, guys. Another adjusted camera angle CGI effect of magic, because everything way too clear appears to show during this one segment. The waterfall isn't blurry like all the other scenes. It's not mistaken enough to be steam. The vegetation is actually lush and excellent. It just screams that this was an adjusted camera angle with some CGI adages for, atmospheric in the trailer. The next scene shows off the bow, and my gosh, right off the bat, the bow string, if you look at the string, it looks blurry as fuck. The feather has bad shading, and the whole bow just seems off. It seems odd. It's hopefully just because we're not in the headset and we're not getting the full visual fidelity, but it just really looks poor. The vegetation around looks semi-decent compared to the other scenes that we've seen showcased so far, but as your character pulls out the arrow, you can see more of that choppiness, that blurriness, and as you can see, the wrinkles on your gloves are actually cool for details, but it's useless if it just ends up looking like a smeared blurry mess. The red rope, ironically, above the arrow is the cleanest and clearest part of the whole weapon, and that's probably when you pull it back next to your face, those would probably be your crosshairs, so of course those would be clear, because how the fuck are you gonna shoot if it's blurry? And when you hear the bow being pulled back, you can hear the tension of the adaptive triggers. And if you play on PS5 with your controller, you know exactly what those feel like and can imagine how it will feel in VR. And that in itself is actually pretty exciting. The next scene shows a bird monster fly up at you, and the first things I noticed during this scene is when it flies up, the wind kind of looks bad, like MS Paint graphics in a line, trying to give you the illusion of wind, but it's clear that a few mere seconds in, it looks like poo. And as it flies way above your character, aka the FOV, the POV, the monster just becomes a blurry mess altogether, like that more smeared paint look. The next few scenes actually kind of worry me, to be honest, and this is something we're going to be talking about a lot because they show the fighting mechanics. And if you notice around the monster, it's a huge open space, which I don't know about you guys, but with my brain and logic, it means to me that the combat only happens in instant-like areas where there's tons of space to strafe left and right, which is pretty bare bones monotone VR gaming combat. And when you look at the monsters, they got tail whips, and you just strive to dodge the tail whip. There doesn't seem to be a lot of combat actually going on here. And when you look at the scratching attack, it goes back to the, when the stripes of the monster scratching on screen, it just goes back to MS Paint laughable graphics. And It shows off another fight with a different monster, but the same instant-like area. And cool, the monster's shooting fireballs this time out of his eyes, but you're still strafing left and right in a big area. The next scene kind of spoils a jump scare that could have been cool if we hadn't known about it, but the trailer kind of spoils it. And then the flying scene actually looks like it's the best part in the game, despite the steamy waterfall and the blurry clouds alongside. With this climbing scene we talked about earlier, it looks right up there with that, and it has the best that this game has to offer in visuals, because you're just kind of like on the rope and the mountain climbing pickaxe, so pick is like sliding down and you can see all the visuals. But honestly, the combat is extremely lacking in all departments so far, and I guess we have to tame our expectations for what we're getting into. And as you shoot the bird, you can see the fire, and when you shoot the bird, the fire that you see isn't that true fire, that true upgraded VR particles or glimmer effects that we wanted to see, because if you play VR, you know what an explosion looks like in VR, and it's just kind of like pixelated in your eye and it like disappears. It just sucks, and we know it sucks. We don't want to see blurry particles in next gen VR. We want to see true 4K next gen fire burning, true 4K explosions. But nevertheless, these are things we've already seen in VR, so I'm honestly not too impressed. A huge boss pops up out of an egg-like statue, and yet again, here we are in another instanced area for more repetitive strafing left and right. And this boss fight mechanic, beatdown of dancing around. More monotonous, repetitive gameplay. The boat scene shows back up with the huge monster walking over you. Now in VR, do not get me wrong, especially if this is your first experience, this will absolutely blow your mind, because this monster is going to be super massive in VR. But if you notice, they place close trees and vegetation so that when you gaze up at this monster, you are wowed and shocked. But if you really pay attention to the sky, you'll notice that it's not the clearest or cleanest or the sharpest as all the other scenes, but the robot does have that effect. And if you just pay more attention on that, like the devs want you to, you're not going to notice the jaggies and the blurriness in the sky. The monster shows a little more wow effects by smashing and splashing its feet in the water, and you see all the water kind of protrude up at you in the boat, and you get to see that in VR, and that actually will probably wow some heads. This next scene shows some butterflies that actually look like butterflies, probably the cleanest butterflies I've ever seen in VR. But if you pay attention to the right, this is where it's all smoke and mirrors, because they go back to looking like those damn white birds of nothing that we talked about way earlier in the analysis. The characters looks up yet again to show that damn bastard sun and its nasty ass god rays of your eye being burned out from the light. The next scene is particularly interesting because it shows off tying string to the mountain climbers. Now, does this actually serve a purpose, or is it just visual stimulation to the brain? And this next scene where you're sliding down the rope, like I was talking about earlier, has epicness. You can see that it's one-handed and everything really does look good, but there is some nasty fog kicking up on the bottom right of the screen. And then the clouds in the distance seem a little bit awkward, but nevertheless, this scene is especially cool. And if you can kind of like have a little bit more free roam ability, maybe you can use two hands on the rope, or stay one hand and swing your arms around, or look down, just have a little bit more control and free roam ability, and not so much on rails like what this game is actually portraying. And then the next scene shows another Matrix-like jump scene, except this time when you jump, you're thrusting your mountain climbing picks into the side of the mountain, showcasing some spark, some glimmer and shimmer effects that we all come to love with the new graphical upgrades of these newer hardware and software consoles, where you can add more, incorporate more, just more dopamine effects to the brain, like every other game that has. So the next scene comes back, and we're gonna rotate back in full circle, because that combat, like every fucking part of combat in this game, is open area instancized, strafing left to right and vice versa. This next scene forecasts and spoils us to know that we're not going to be able to overcome this boss. There is like a cool like archer weapon that it knocks us away from, but a cinematic plays and we're being hauled to what appears our death. But we all know how it's going to play out, and we're either going to be fine or we're going to extract our revenge. And maybe this game is a game over scene and the devs are being coy and using this to mislead us, but we will not actually know until we play the game for ourselves. So just stay tuned for that. More CGI appears with a boss mob letting us know that it's exclusive to the PSVR 2, and that will wrap up the announcement trailer. But we're going to keep on going in this deep dive analysis because we still have another trailer to go over, which is fairly recent, and it's the Game Awards trailer. The first scene we are shown right away from the Game Awards trailer is something different from what we've seen so far. It's different from the boat levels, which is pretty fantastic, but we get to see some of the walking. It is short and brief, and honestly, it looks like it's pre-rendered walking, which would mean it's a cinematic and we don't actually walk, which would be a high red flag disappointment factor. And as you can see, the walking is ended and we're greeted to a snowy mountain. However, if you look at the snowy mountain, it looks blurry as fuck. The vegetation on the left is borderline PS2 polygonic graphics of shit turds, Microsoft Paint, and even if you look at the floor, you can see the puddles look like blurry goop smeared everywhere of diarrhea shit. And then they show off the rest of the walking, which leads you into another instant-sized area with a new boss. Don't be fooled by this new boss just because he has electricity powers. It's just a distraction to hide the fact that it's another boss in an open area where you're just gonna strafe left, strafe right. You're gonna fight it like you do in all the other combat that was shown. And honestly, it's very disappointing. And if the combat only takes place in initialized areas like we've pretty much seeing, a lot of people are going to be bored after the first two boss fights and they're going to be snoozing their way through this damn game. Notice that some of the camera angles are adjusted. Text comes back up in this new trailer just to remind everyone that the perfect scenes that are not blurry and they're mock-up and they look too good to be true, that is most likely why. It's not reflective of the actual game that we're going to get in our headsets. The bird spits out some ice balls looking like Articuno, and the next scene plays out. Where the next scene, it kind of tricks us as it shows a veil, and I'm kind of thinking maybe it's a sneaky level, a new way to spice up the gameplay, but no. Nevertheless, a boss fucking fire breathes on the veil, it burns away, and you're back to another installized big area. More of the same old repetitive combat, and we haven't even played this game yet. I'm just covering it and I'm already bored. Back to the electric crab for more of the same old of the same shit, and this time with a different gun though. There looks like to be more mobs approaching than just a one-on-one boar fest, and this could be the way that the devs are shaking the game up a little bit, because it seems to be multiple monsters that you have to fight at once, and you do have a new weapon, which is way more interesting to me than the standard bow. But before we can even see what the weapon does, the scene cuts off, sadly. More same of the crab back in a different area where it looks cold, and actually this scene that we see is the cleanest visuals that we've seen despite the last trailer with the two couple scenes. But this looks really clean, but we know why it's clean, because there's not a lot going on in this scene. It's a big area, it's a one-on-one with the damn boss, you're using the standard bow that we're all sick of and I'm sick of talking about, and it's the same shit. After this, you see more cinematic CGI, you see the wannabe Articuno that actually can do lightning now, so he's a baby. He had a baby with Zapdos, and that's the fucking bird we get. Who knows? But that is everything in this wrap up of a deep dive analysis. We went over all the poorness, we went over all the good stuff, and I just want to throw out a disclaimer. I am not trying to hate on this, but y'all know me by now. I have no BS, no bullshit, no bias. I give it to y'all straight like vodka on ice, or as they say in the bar, vodka on rocks. So y'all gotta know what I do. And I've been doing a lot of these 10 games are coming, these 11 games are coming, these are the top games that need to come. I wanted to do a little something different but still keep that VR content, so we did a Horizon deep dive analysis, and this is what I came up with on my end. These are just some of the opinions that I have about the game and its journey. This is the stuff that I found interesting being showed off in the trailers, especially after the Game Award trailers. It just seems more of the same old repetitive nature with some visuals to maybe wow you. Honestly, from what we've seen so far, and we haven't seen a lot, this could be a 5-hour experience because they haven't showed us a lot, and it could probably be boring as fuck after the first 2.5-3 hours. But I am going to have this game, and I will play this game for myself, and I will have a review. I'll probably stream this game. I'm super hyped for the game, but after doing this analysis, my eyes are a little bit more open to my expectations, and they are a little bit lowered. Not saying that this game will be bad, but if you watch the video, y'all can understand what I'm getting to. Make sure you leave a comment below. Let me know how you feel about the deep dive and analysis. Do you want to see more videos like this? I got y'all over here on my channel. Let me be your PSVR 2 and all VR hype beast, because we are going to the sun, going to the moon on that Elon Musk road, and I need y'all to hit that like button for some more engagement, and of course smash that subscribe, because we are on a fast track to 1K. We're trying to get this channel monetized so I can pour a lot more time and at least have some kind of reward for my time. And when we get closer to that goal, my boys, I will be doing giveaways on this channel. So just my way of being appreciated, I want to give back to my community that I'm helped building. So I will see you guys in the next video. God bless and peace.